Thank you for tuning in to watch the Invest Dallas-Fort Worth Leadership Summit. You're about to watch Panel 1, Shaping Tomorrow, How Strategic Development Drives Prosperity in North Texas Communities. Be sure to like and follow for more content from today's top business and thought leaders. Enjoy.
Thank you, Mayor Ross. I'm going to relate to something you said. January 1st, my white beard came off also. And for us old guys, that can make a huge difference. Well, thank you, everybody, for this morning, for coming. I just want to start off, and before we do anything, let the panel introduce themselves. And so if you just want to, one at a time, tell everybody who you are.
Good morning. Testing. Can you hear me? Yes. Good morning. I'm Gloria Salinas, Vice President at the Frisco Economic Development Corporation.
Good morning. Jason Moore, Executive Director of the Mansfield Economic Development Corporation.
Good morning. I'm Beth Bowman and have the privilege to serve as the President and CEO of the Irving Economic Chamber and Irving Economic Development Partnership.
Hey, good morning. Welcome to Arlington. I'm Marty Wieder. I'm Executive Director of the Arlington Economic Development Corporation.
Very good. Thank you. And so my name is Mike Koch. I'm a guy that's blessed beyond measure. I have the pleasure of supporting the teams at Happy State Bank from San Antonio to Dallas. And a great group of people. And I have a wonderful wife who tolerates me regardless of all my shortcomings. Okay. So to kind of set the stage, the Metroplex here has experienced explosive growth. Now, based on my perspective, I think that growth extends all the way to San Antonio along the I-35 corridor. So it's real important what happens here, just as it is, I think, that what happens up and down the corridor. So with that said, this panel is Shaping Tomorrow, How Strategic Development Drives Prosperity in North Texas Communities. Okay, for everybody, I've got a question here for all of you. What innovative strategies have been the most effective in guiding the expansion of North Texas, and how can these approaches be applied to ensure sustainable growth in emerging communities?
Go ahead, Gloria, jump out here.
I'll start. For Frisco, we are really well known for our public-private partnerships. I would say that has been the most innovative strategy for us in development. On the public sector side, it's really important for us as we're shaping developments with developers across the city that we focus on creating walkable amenities, green space, for our residents to also enjoy those partnerships, and most notably the STAR, the PGA of America, Toyota Stadium. We're working to not only create those new developments that are extremely walkable and highly amenitized for the community, but we're also looking at redeveloping those amenities as well, too, as we go into the future. Speed to market is extremely critical as we work on these very large developments. So I think the way we innovate our permitting process and the way we stay really competitive and making sure that those developments are a part of public assets for us too is really critical.
So for Mansfield, when we think about the marriage between public investment and private sector momentum, that's how we're looking at these different developments and projects. That's what this region is really good at. Deals go where deals flow, and deals flow where infrastructure grows. I just came up with that, Rachel. We'll trademark that piece. We talk about that a lot. And I think when we are looking in Mansfield specifically, how do we ensure that the land that's available or redevelopment opportunities can match up with public infrastructure, whether that's regional infrastructure or localized at the city level? All of our public-private partnerships incorporate some piece of infrastructure. There's better ways that we can finance and leverage that growth so that growth is paying for growth. And so all of our public-private partnerships, like Gloria mentioned, involve that aspect. And so I think that's helped us in Mansfield create the type of destination and remarkable projects that we're working on today.
So in Irving Salinas, it's really that innovative choice of your local government choosing to be pro-business and a collaborative partnership. And we have chosen to work in that manner on behalf of business industry for years. So as many of y'all know, Irving is a location where over 70% of the tax base comes from the commercial sector. So we're a community built for business and so much more. And then having the pleasure to have, 2 master plan communities within our area definitely helps us lean into our reputation as the headquarters of headquarters. But it's a choice from every team member with our partners at the City of Irving, from my team at the Irving Economic Development Partnership and the Chamber of Commerce, to really collaboratively come together and take challenges and turn them into opportunities. Day in, day out, we're pulling up that red tape to roll out the carpet for our customers. And we believe that's truly an innovative part of our competitive advantage. And as my colleagues have shared, infrastructure, access, that walkability, quality of life. Your residents and your customers are your best people to amplify every great quality that each of our communities have to offer that make up our competitive region.
Great stuff, Mike. You hear a lot of common themes. I mean, we're all talking about B3. And of course, where we're sitting is a phenomenal example since 1961 to see how this district has all come together here in Arlington. That's a whole nother story I think we'll talk about here in a minute. But our city manager likes to stress, we move at the speed of business. The whole idea of being responsive, like Beth talked about, we think is critical here in Arlington, Texas, to be able to as well benefit from the infrastructure that we have and to make sure it continues. The mayor referenced earlier us getting 9 FIFA World Cup events. No way that would be possible had not we benefited from infrastructure investment over the years, and as well for the future to see things like that I-2287 project reach completion. Those same things have got to be a major priority for all of us if we're going to continue to be competitive. And as a side note, it helps in Arlington too that now since November 2020, we had an election and have a 1/4% sales tax, and actually formed an economic development corporation. So it now gives us that one added benefit of being able to come and be able to compete and participate in partnering with businesses unlike we've not been able to do before.
Thank you. So as kind of a segue from where Jason started with infrastructure, what role does infrastructure, can you expand upon the role that infrastructure investment makes in the communities, and what part does that play in attracting and retaining businesses? Go ahead.
Just comment, where the conversation began. From an infrastructure perspective, it's a daily investment, right? It's 5, 10, 15, 20 years down the road for those infrastructure conversations, from roads to water to sewer to broadband. Each of those play a key role. And when you're working with potential project opportunities from a community perspective, we either say, yes, we have it, or no, we don't. To say that it's coming creates a significant pause and can put you at a competitive disadvantage. So for all of our elected officials in the room that are continuing to amplify the importance of investing in our infrastructure throughout the region, that's really critical to maintain our competitive advantage.
It's the long game, is it not? We've got to maintain that investment.
Absolutely.
I just want to give a shout out to DFW Airport. Is anybody here from the airport? I think it's probably one of the main reasons why we're all here and how these communities have grown in the Metroplex. With the infrastructure, talking about long-term infrastructure investment, our city manager will always point out that the utility fund is an economic development tool. We get AAA bond rated for our utility fund, which is unusual for cities to be able to leverage those type of resources. So we can keep expanding and getting the infrastructure ahead of the pace of growth to ensure that it's predictable and development can take place.
As for Frisco, I would add, it is extremely critical, right? We've been fastest growing city in the nation for the past decade, and still adding 800 to 1,000 residents move into the city of Frisco every day. We're 70 square miles with the DNT slicing right through the heart of the city. So the development along the Dallas North Tollway and making sure that our master planned communities and the residents, are able to sustain that growth long term is really critical. The long-term game for us, our mayor and council are really driving the Economic Development Corporation to focus on smart city technologies and innovation, last mile delivery, Google Wing drone delivery, Drive AI, driverless vehicles. So we're leaning into a lot of the new technology and people mover systems, as well as product mover systems and logistics and e-commerce that help alleviate some of our roadways, traffic, and also support the businesses and the development around the community. So that is technology and innovation is a key driver for our infrastructure.
Okay. So how can public-private partnerships be leveraged to advance this cause in our communities while preserving the unique nature of North Texas?
Yeah, I'll refer to where we're sitting. And I appreciate all of your patience in coming in this morning, because you can see there's a lot going on where we are. But all the investment and co-investment taking place by so many different people, investors who help fund a $300 million National Medal of Honor Museum that's going to open up this next month. Improvements that the Economic Development Corporation, for instance, is constructing and paying for construction of a new structured parking facility just to the north of this, which was the convention center, has pivoted to be available still for meetings like this, but for other uses. And to be able to do all this together with different players like the Texas Rangers and Rev Development, to bring in Portish, who just yesterday we opened up the new One Rangers Way, this very exclusive living facility right next to the new 888-room Lowe's Arlington Hotel and Convention Center. So Lowe's in as an investor, in Portish, the Rangers, Legends, the Dallas Cowboys. They have so many different players teaming with the city and their public entities. I mean, I think this gives a phenomenal example right where we're sitting and what's in and around here in 2,000 acres of how it can happen and wouldn't happen as it was because of those teaming together like we have and partnering.
I would just add, from a corporate campus perspective, the workforce is driving locations, right? So employers want to be able to offer their employees an opportunity where their workforce has options to walk trails, get on their bikes, run, access to amenities, housing variety. In Irving, Las Salinas, there's many examples of public-private partnerships that are allowing these projects to take shape. Probably many of you in this room have had the opportunity to experience the Toyota Music Factory or come into our entertainment district at the Irving Convention Center at Las Salinas and the Westin Headquarter Hotel. It's a great example of a public-private partnership. And then corporate campus development to follow with the Wells Fargo Workplace Center that'll come online later this year. But it's a true commitment. Marty shared, it's not, okay, we did this today, sit back and relax. It's what are we doing tomorrow? And that tomorrow might equal 5, 10, 15, 20 years down the road. And I just want to reemphasize our elected officials and those of us that have the pleasure to represent communities. Day in, day out, we have to continue to work together to make sure we have the dollars that are investing into our regional transportation assets. We give a shout out to DFW Airport. It's definitely our economic development driver, but also, Love Field and Alliance. Those are important aviation components that have come online. In McKinney, another regional airport opportunity to come online. That matters to continue to keep our region competitive.
I think I would add here that, and I agree and I echo, the regionalism is really a critical component of public-private partnerships. I'll use the PGA of America's headquarters and 2 championship golf courses and Omni PGA Resort project as an example of regional impact. It's important to Frisco, that's true. But over the next 10 years, the PGA's 2 championship golf course and tournaments will drive $2.5 billion of economic impact across the region. This summer in June, we're hosting the KPMG Women's PGA Championship. And in 2027, we'll host the Men's PGA Championship, with many more coming over the next 20 years. Those regional and global events for us really will drive tourism, hotels. Visitors are not just going to stay in Frisco. They'll stay in Irving. They'll visit Arlington. They're going to come across the region for these large major events. We talked about World Cup, so Frisco will be a host city site for that as well. And we'll have a hub at Toyota Stadium, a practice facility for teams. So these large public-private partnerships, I think the one thing we take away is that, your question was, how does it impact the region and how do we continue to showcase creative projects with character? I think the STAR, EGA, we have several of them, and there's more across the region. More importantly, it's one way that we can drive economic impact and revenue streams across the entire region. And that's really important for Frisco when we're looking at these deals as well.
I would just add, with the uncertainty in the market, in the capital markets, as developments come in, P3 is really critical. So we want to leverage those public investment dollars with the private sector momentum again. And we help each other out. So as the public sector, we help you offset some type of risk, whether that's in the capital stack or on an operational side of the development. We're leveraging those P3 partnerships to be able to do that. And then 40 years from now, when we look back and say, did we do it right? I think we're going to say yes more than we will no because of the P3s that we have.
Thank you, everybody. One thing this morning coming in, I'm reminded that economic development isn't always pretty. I don't know about anybody else in the room here, but I almost wore the mud this morning because I hit some of it, started to slip, and I thought, oh my gosh, that would be something to come in and be half-caked with some of the development. Anyway, okay. This question's for Beth. Beth, in what ways do you measure the success of strategic development projects for Irving, and how do these metrics inform future economic planning decisions?
Yes, so great question. I think, in every community, we're measuring success differently. It really starts with your policy body, mayor and council. I have the privilege to report to 57 bosses on our board of directors. So having that private sector weigh in to complement the public sector is really critical. In Irving Salinas, we're measuring success by jobs, so net new jobs into our community. We're also measuring, we know we have a really healthy business base, a diverse business base. We want to make sure to keep them and allow them to expand. So we're measuring our businesses that are in our community today, additional capital expenditures in which they're adding, as well as jobs. And then we have an opportunity to really move the needle in engagement. So as our employers, employees are back in the office, we want to make sure that they take pride in their local community and they're aware of not only their corporate neighbors, but the nonprofits that might need assistance. And then we want to make sure to really lean in and have them take authentic ownership with their relationship with their local community. But CapEx, jobs, and then again, it's always great to have a healthy pipeline of opportunities. But we're really pleased to be focused on jobs in our community.
Thank you, Beth. Okay, the next question is for Jason Moore. What innovative strategies has the Mansfield EDC implemented to attract and retain businesses? And how do these strategies align with the region's long-term economic goals?
Sure. So in Mansfield, we started with the city council's vision of what the community wants the city to be. And then we created a strategic plan. And in that strategic plan, several goals and strategies. And with that was to create an innovation hub for the city. And we've got a district that was recently identified through our long-range planning efforts. We call it the LINQ, L-I-N-Q, Innovation District. We got two companies here, and I apologize I didn't invite you directly, but they're both sitting here. Admiral Legacy and Cellmark are included in that. They've got developments where we've leveraged, whether it's EDC land or we've got master leases with office building space. Where you may not get Class A office space on its own with the market the way it is today. We've partnered with them to create these innovation networks. It's not just a typical development. There's strategic partnerships and bringing that hub of innovation to both of these projects where you're bringing education, nonprofit, private industry, and public sector all together. And so our EDC considers ourselves as kind of the hub for bringing those different groups together. And that's what's going to make the success of both of these developments. We've been working with several universities and our local school district on these things. But I'll drill down, going back to the basics, creating a SWOT analysis. It's still one of the most important things I think you can do. Knowing what your strengths are, knowing what your weaknesses are, those are critical to set the stage for, how do you strategize to get to where you want to be. And by leveraging those relationships that we've had to identify those and to, invest in those infrastructure and private sector opportunities. We've got some wonderful projects. They'll all be breaking ground. We've had 12, 13 groundbreakings in the last 8 months or so. So those are going to continue throughout this year. And then finally, we have a new sports entertainment district called Stable Street, where we'll have a component of soccer multi-use stadium that was elected by the residents of Mansfield to use our Type A sales tax to leverage some of that. So that's what we're doing. We're staying true to our data and what we find in our market, just in our SWOT analysis. And so hopefully we'll continue to leverage those, and you'll see great things in Mansfield to come.
Thank you, sir. Okay, this is for Gloria. In what ways does your corporation engage with local communities to ensure that development projects meet the needs of the residents while promoting regional prosperity?
Listening to our residents they are our first and foremost, most important customer. I mentioned earlier, Frisco has been fastest growing city for the past decade. With that, jobs are critical in our community. While we've been fastest growing city, we haven't been able to, create the jobs and the business and the development quick enough to serve our residents. So just before the pandemic, we were shedding about 86% of our talent. 86% of Frisco residents were leaving the city for jobs outside of the city. Today, we're proud, and I'm very, very proud to tell you and stand up and say that, in the past 3 years, we've created 10,000 new jobs, over 10,000 new jobs for the residents of Frisco. We've listened, right? We've studied our labor force, the labor that's leaving. We understand we have a huge tech talent base for the Metroplex. We also have a lot of the executive and senior executive teams of the Fortune 22 headquarters across the region that live in Frisco. So we started targeting and focusing on attracting and creating spaces for headquarter opportunities, but also being very intentional about those tech and innovation workers and focusing on how do we attract venture capital, and the plug and play announcement where we have a global accelerator program to support our entrepreneurs who want to start companies and grow companies here locally within the community. So we're attacking on all fronts. And we're proud to say, for the first time in our history, I mentioned we've been fastest growing city in the past decade. For the first time in our history, our jobs are growing at a 7% quicker rate than our population. And that is saying a lot. So we are running as fast as we can to create jobs, again, through innovation and entrepreneurship for our residents, but also being, completely attractive and providing those amenities for headquarter relocation opportunities as well.
Thank you so much. Marty, this next question is for you, and we're running a little tight on time. And I'm going to warn everybody, this is a little contradictory, right? So in what ways, what's the importance of considering the environmental impact of development, and how can we keep that top of mind to advance projects and support economic growth?
Yeah, Mike, it's very important in Arlington, Texas, for a number of reasons. I mean, we want our growth to be sustainable, but let's face it, we're a city that's about 95% built out. Part of the challenge and opportunity for our development corporation is to be able to use our sales tax to foster redevelopment. And that's going to continue to be a huge part of what we do. With that is going to come sometimes purchasing properties on our own or with other entities and doing demolition and finding sometimes there's some mitigation that's necessary. Again, for those environmental reasons. We also have a number of creeks in our city. Our Public Works Department already does a tremendous job of keeping up with how important it is that we ensure that there's, in terms of runoff and other things that happen with development, that's addressed and engineered up front. And so we know for the importance of not only the quality of life, like Gloria is talking about for her citizens, for the ones in Arlington and the others that are coming in to work here, we want them to feel safe driving in, but also feel very comfortable working where they are and know they're in a place that's healthy in addition. And so I think it gives us a great opportunity to carry that forward and take care of our own residents who, by the way, in just a survey we just did, found that more and more of them are raising their level of education, going out and getting additional degrees or re-degreeing, re-educating to make sure we have workforce here. So we're going to have that workforce here and coming in. We want to make sure it's healthy to be here. And we recognize how important that is to take care of that, Mike.
Well, thank you so much. A lot of really dedicated people doing a lot of great work. I want to thank this first panel.